Welcome to. Yeah.
So we have a quorum. So we can start our meeting tonight. We have two items on the agenda for this evening. The first is to go into a session to discuss litigation strategy. And then secondly, just and possible vote on warrant article 7, which is the Clark Road zoning. We're going to be delaying our public comment until after we come out of our executive session. And we're going to move people off of out of the room and off the Zoom who are not necessary for the executive session. But first we need a motion to enter executive session.
So, second.
So we have a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation strategy and settlement funding. Michael Berger. Harry Bors.
Yes.
Cliff Brown.
Yes.
Anthony Buono. Yes. Elise Couture Stone.
Yes.
John Doggett. Harry Friedman.
Yes.
David Mark Goldstein.
Yes.
Neil Gordon.
Yes.
Susan Granoff.
Yes.
Barry Grossman.
Yes.
Kelly Hardebay.
Yes.
Elisa Jonas. Might not be. Janice Kahn.
Yes.
Brian Ladd.
Yes.
Alec Levovich.
Yes.
Carol Levin. Liz Linder. Pam Lodich. Jocelyn Murphy.
Yes.
Donnell O'Neill. Linda Olson Pelkey.
Yes.
Fran Perler.
Yes.
David Pollock.
Yes.
Carlos Trejo.
Yes.
Margaret Rubotham.
She's on her way, but she's not here yet.
Okay, Lee Selwyn.
Yes.
Christine Westfall.
Yes.
Okay, so by a vote of 20-0, we're going to enter into executive session, which means we are going to stop our report. I'll let people back in who have been waiting in the waiting room.
While you're doing that, I'd like to disclose something that my apologies that I didn't do earlier, but Barry Friedland is a new associate town council. She's with me and I'm sorry, I'm only introducing her now, but she's our new labor and employment lawyer.
Welcome.
So she's coming and seeing you guys in action for the first time. So my apologies that I didn't introduce Barry earlier.
So now we are going to take up a motion to authorize a transfer from the town's liability insurance fund, the sum of $3 million. $1.5 million payable in the first year, the balance payable in equal installments over the next 5 years to settle claims by a minor victim of sexual abuse.
So moved.
Dennis, can I just correct that? It's not a transfer. The claims will hit the fund directly. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you have to work with your own staff. I got the motion from him.
Yep.
So what's the language, Melissa?
Authorized settlement of the claims to be paid for out of the liability fund.
Authorize, okay, well, can I change? Authorize payment from the town's liability fund?
Yes.
Does that mean the subsequent payments go in the budget year in which they're paid? Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so authorize payment from the town's liability insurance fund. The sum of $3 million, $1.5 million payable in the first year, the balance payable in equal installments over the next 5 years to settle claims by a minor victim of sexual abuse. You're okay with that, Melissa?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Michael,
Yes.
Harry B,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
Harry F,
Yes.
David Mark,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Jocelyn abstains. Donnell,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
Margaret.
Yeah.
Lee,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
All right, so by a vote of 26 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention, we're gonna authorize said payments. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to warrant article 7, which is Clark Road zoning. I am going to make Kelly a co-host so she can take it away. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you keep that.
To an empty, near the
Just-
room.
Just start. Are you projecting?
I'm not projecting yet. I will. in a
Okay,
minute.
all right.
So, good evening, everyone. Gonna walk you through warrant article 7 first, and then we'll walk you through the discussion that we had in our numerous subcommittee meetings, and then finally through the amended warrant article. So, stick with me here on this, folks. It is so warrant article 7 basically proposes a new overlay district that would facilitate the residential conversion of the former school building to Clark Road into multifamily housing. And it also allows for the creation of additional multifamily housing on an open section of the parcel. So this article, to be clear, involves a single parcel that's really composed of 2 lots. So one on Clark Road that has the existing school building on it, and one on Philbrook Road. The proposed overlay district creates 2 separate zones, one called CRM1 and one called CRM2, with very different dimensional requirements and development standards for each, because the lots themselves are very different. In fact, the underlying zoning for the lots is different. So CRM1 covers the lot that the former Monmouth School Building is on, which is in a T6 zone. And CRM1 again allows adaptive reuse exclusively for multifamily housing. CRM2 overlays the adjacent 10,000 square foot parcel, which is an S10 zone. It's currently underdeveloped. It's covered with astroturf. It was used as field by the school. So it's also important to know that the school building on CRM1 was permitted as a 3-story school with a garage in 1996 under Dover, and it was built in 2001. A couple other things. The moderators indicated that this is a housing choice article, and so would require just a simple majority of town meeting to pass. And finally, that this zone is time limited. So unlike some of our other overlay districts in town where no concern has been expressed about how long they've been going on and the lack of progress, this is really time limited, and anybody wishing to take advantage of the overlay needs to file an application for site plan review by April 19th, 2027. So here, let me just share my screen so we can take a look at the, let me switch this. So just so we can take a look at the 2 lots in the districts, I think it would be helpful for everybody to see. Can we get it to project up there?
I'm trying, hang on. It's this talking and typing. I'm not good at doing both, Christine. I'm sorry. There we go, let me share it.
So.
Yeah, focus. I'm gonna go to slideshow mode, so it's just a little bit bigger. Okay, so just as you can see, this is the proposed changes to the zoning map. So over on the left-hand side, and it's sort of a little bit charcoal gray, you see CRM1 at 2 Clark Road. And then on the other side of the parcel, you see is in black, and that's CRM2. That today is an undeveloped plot, basically covered with astroturf. So those are the 2 things we're talking about. And I just thought the visual would be helpful as we're going through talking about really the differences in the zoning and what's being proposed here.
Can I just add what they, I think
be interesting to know. For some reason, these two lots were always the same property. There were never two lots. So they've never been divided.
That is, thank God, that is really, I think. They've not been divided at all. It's interesting that they have different underlying zoning, however.
I got it, yes.
Okay. All right, and let's see if I can manage to stop my share. Sorry, go back to my. And by the way, this map is in the warrant article itself, so you can take a look at it. Should you need to go back to it during our discussion. So as I mentioned, the subcommittee met 3 times for over 10 hours, really to discuss the zoning changes in proposed project, with the goal of understanding just the project itself and really tightening up the zoning controls to better reflect the current state of the building, the law, the project plans, and also town and community goals, including parking, open space, and trees. So as I mentioned, the proposed project on CRM1 is the conversion of this former school building into 35 housing units, basically apartments. It'll range from about 750 square feet to 1,250 square feet. And so the warrant article, because of the size of the development, it is subject to our inclusionary zoning. The warrant article goes a little bit further in stipulating that the affordable units will be located on site, either within CRM1 or distributed evenly between CRM1 and CRM2. So out of this project, there will come some on-site affordable housing units.
Right.
So in order to create 35 units out of this school building, the developer does need to create an addition on the top of the roof that is stepped back from the roof line to create private decks for these top units. It also minimize the addition of the building mass. And so the subcommittee worked with the petitioner to tighten the definition of adaptive use, reuse, to specify that only the allowable changes to the building would be to specify the allowable changes to the building, ensure the building's overall footprint remains the same, strictly limits the removal or covering of external walls, so the footprint itself really can't be expanded, and also to specify the placement of the rooftop mechanical equipment. And so let me give you a quick idea of what some of all of those changes look like here. Because again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so what you see here on the screen is basically the corner of Clark Road and Boylston Street. And this is the existing building with an architect's rendering of what that rooftop addition would look like. As you can see, as we go down further here, you'll see how the rooftop addition is stepped back to create these nice private decks for these upper story units. As well, which was something that we had talked fairly extensively about. The subcommittee also felt that the originally proposed article did not really go far enough to guarantee that there was going to be really useful open space on the parcel. And also it didn't go far enough in terms of preserving the mature trees on the land existing. Linda Olsen-Pelkey really led the charge on this and felt that the open spaces should not be fragmented into small unusable segments and really stressed the need for minimums for both usable open space and also the landscaped open areas. So as a result, the minimal allowable usable open space is set to 25% of the parcel or 10,000 square feet, which provides an amazing amount of open green space for the to-be residents. And it also requires that all landscape plans include tree conservation measures that need to be certified by a professional arborist and reviewed by the planning. We also spent a fair amount of time discussing parking. Originally, the article provided for up to 2 spaces per unit, which felt high to Carlos and other members of the subcommittee, given the site's proximity to the T. So after much discussion about neighborhood concerns about traffic, street parking, discussions about other parking studies in paving open space, the committee voted to reduce the parking
to the existing indoor spaces in 9 outdoor ones. All bicycle parking for this development, including parking for larger bicycles, will be within the building footprint. And additionally, there were 2 public benefits that had been requested by the neighborhood were added to the warrant article. The first is maintenance of and continued use of the pedestrian path between Clark Road and Philbrook Road, and the use of a playground that exists on the Clark Road property today. And so the subcommittee, as I mentioned, met for over 10 hours on this. And we spent most of our time discussing and debating the zoning for CRM1. As you can see, we have a huge packet with a lot of drawings, a lot of elevations, lots of revised site plans coming to us about this particular development. As we turn to CRM2, which is the empty lot, the proposed zoning there was much looser. It really described 3 different building types that would have been allowed. And it set a maximum size for each unit at 2,500 square feet. But it really didn't set the maximum number of units. Some pieces of form-based zoning, such that we used in MBTA-CA, were included, but not all the aspects. So things like lot coverage, which was so important, on the North Harvard, was not included. And so it was definitely it did not take the complete form-based zoning, pieces of it, and it really didn't give us a good idea of what could be developed on this lot. During our hearings, we heard that 4 units would be developed, then maybe 3. And we were shown a preliminary drawing of a 4-unit building and some massing studies. But the conclusion that we came to was that this project is not as far along or well developed as the one on CRM1. And it shows in the looser language that was included in the article as originally filed. So the same rigor, I will say this is a unique situation in that we have an empty lot in an S10 zone that the developer is looking to upzone fairly significantly. The neighbors that had spoken to us and had submitted basically, excuse me, submitted letters in support of Welcome Clark Road. We did not hear very much at all from folks on Philbrook Road. Don't really understand how they feel about the impact of this upzoning, what it would have on their neighborhood. So basically, the majority of the subcommittee felt that the same rigor should be applied to CRM2, as the requested upzoning, as I mentioned, is significant. And the considerations, I think, are different, given that CRM2 is undeveloped. And any construction would represent new development. The developers previously indicated that their intention to use that CRM2 lot during the development, excuse me, of the CRM1 project, rather than developing it immediately. And so the subcommittee's version of warrant Article 7 removes the dimensional requirements and the definitions for CRM2, but it leaves CRM2 within the overlay district. This allows the developer to move forward with the adaptive reuse on CRM1 and come back to town meeting as early as May next year to define the zoning for CRM2. So our concerns basically for CRM1, we were able to work through the subcommittee process to really tighten it up. But as we started to take a look at CRM2, we were not able to work through all of our concerns and get that as tight as we wanted. So we did at one point during our discussion, talk about removing CRM2 entirely from the overlay district, but felt that that was not appropriate. And that we would like the developer to come back with more well-defined projects so we can construct zoning that better meets the needs there. So by a vote of 6-1-0, the land use subcommittee recommends favorable action on warrant Article 7 as it.
So before we go to comments or questions, does petitioner have anything to add?
Oh, I would think so. A few words. First of all, I want to thank the subcommittee. To say they were diligent is an understatement. They put a lot of time in and a lot of effort, and a lot of their comments were very beneficial to the project. You may notice, you look at that addition to the roof, it's indented on both sides by 4 feet away from the sides of the building. Those are Carlos indentations. So, and David went along with it. So the project's better for the process. The process is grueling, and we'll come back to that, but the project is better for the process. And I just want to make 2 corrections to Kelly, who was 98% correct. First of all, the addition to the roof is more than decks. The addition to the roof is the bedrooms for the units on the 3rd floor. So the 3rd floor units become duplexes, and the bedrooms are on the roof. We specifically decided to put the bedrooms up on the roof and with the decks, so there wouldn't be an area of entertaining, and the neighborhood has been all in favor of that addition. The other minor correction is we never, although we have a dispute with the subcommittee on parking, it's not a large dispute in terms of quantity, but we never proposed 2-car parking per unit. That would have been 70 spaces, and we couldn't get that in anywhere. So what we did propose is, and the neighborhood felt strongly, is 35 spaces would be 1 per unit, and 5 extra spaces for 40. That would be 27 in the garage, 13 exterior. The neighborhood felt very strong about that. The neighborhood tells us they're impacted by Brookline High parking and on-street parking, and the common refrain we hear in Brookline that the 2-hour parking limitation isn't enforced, and so forth. And they felt very strongly that they didn't want any overflow guest parking into the neighborhood. So we had proposed 5 exterior spaces, and I think the subcommittee is proposing 1. The subcommittee is proposing 36 spaces in total. We're proposing 40. So as I said, it's not a great difference. It's 4 cars, but we think it's important that we don't spill over into the neighborhood. I must say, I've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and I've sat in the town and seen a lot of development projects come and go. I've never seen one with as much neighborhood support as that. I don't think we had one neighborhood piece of opposition. It's been a very constructive dialogue. We've said yes to every one of the requests of the neighborhood, which we think are very reasonable, and we'll go through it. But I really think that this is a key moment for the town. I've lived here my entire life, and we've always heard words about creating housing, rental housing, workforce housing, and this is what this is designed to be. Now, when we started this process, we talked to the planning department as to what was their vision for something like this, and the word workforce housing came up, and then we're looking at the time before we bought it as maybe doing luxury condominiums or something like that, and then we got interested. The developer got interested in doing workforce housing. Now, there are those who will say, well, how do we know it's workforce housing? Well, that's a good question. We certainly weren't going to voluntarily create a rent control system for one building or even for something like this. So we talked to some professions, and they said you can create workforce housing by limiting the size of the units. And that's what we've done. These are smaller units. I think the smallest unit is 700 square feet, and the largest is around 1,300. So these are relatively small units that we think will translate into workforce housing. And we expect the rents to be reasonable. In CMR1, we will have 30 units at what we call moderate rent, and 5 protected by the affordable requirements of the bylaw. So 35 units, 5 of which will be affordable. we think that this is a tremendous opportunity for the town. It's the two developers involved are both residents of Brookline. And they want to do something that's positive. And as we got through went into the process, we found out that there was some needs of the neighborhood. One of the first ones was that we never envisioned this, that they so value a pathway that leads from Clark Road to Philbrook Road. And that was in the very first meeting and has been consistent throughout it. They value that pathway. We are committed to keeping that pathway. We may have shifted a little bit left or right, so that it lines up with existing stairs or create new stairs. But we're gonna keep that pathway, and it's gonna be 6 feet wide. And as you say, and Kelly's right, one of I think the things that the subcommittee did that I think was excellent. Kelly, because he likes to put nice words on it, said they tightened it up. Some other members of the subcommittee said, we want to make sure you do what you say you're gonna do. Okay, but either way, it had the same effect of tightening the zoning, and which we had no objection to. And really so that we can, and the public benefits are in there, including the pathway. The other thing they asked is that was a jungle gym or some contraption that the kids play on, play structure. And they wanted to keep that there. It was there for the school and the kids in the neighborhood like it. At first, we were resistant to that request because of our view that it was a jungle gym on private property was a prescription for a liability. But then town council came to the rescue and pointed out to us that there's a state statute that says if we have play structures on our property open to the public and we don't charge for their use, there can be no claim of negligence. So we are gonna name the jungle gym after the town council, but we are gonna preserve it. No, I shouldn't say that. We're not gonna preserve it. We're gonna replace it with a light structure, a better structure, and there may be more than one structure there, but we're going to have a play area somewhere between 300 to 400 square feet for people in the neighborhood to use during the daylight hours. So and that's another public benefit. But I think the real public benefit here is creating, I don't remember another proposal in Brookline to create rental housing at a moderate rate, moderate rents or smaller units. And I think that this is a very, we hope, I tell this story, when a couple of months ago, I came in to town hall to deliver the tax check for this proposal. And I was talking to a lady in the town, the treasurer's office. And she lamented to me that we were talking, she's a new hire, she likes Brookline, loves it, but she has to drive from the South Shore every day. And she said to me, I said, why don't you move to Brookline? She said, can't afford it. I said to her, you will be able to afford it now. So we're hopeful that we will be able to attract town employees, teachers. We hope to get some Brookline High School teachers, police officers, firefighters, anybody that, truly workforce housing. We hope we will be able to attract some of these individuals to live in this building. And we're looking for long-term, one of the developers said that he operates ton of rental housing in other communities, and his goal is to finds it much easier on the property and much better to have lower rents where people will stay than having constant turnover. So that's what we're looking for.
Can we get to comments and questions from?
Yeah, can I just, I want to get to CMR 2 quickly.
Okay.
All right.
I have a theory of why the meeting was 10 hours long.
I think your theory is wrong.
It was us, it wasn't him.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. The first meeting I went to, they spent 45 minutes discussing their minutes. I just a second.
Well, you can blame the town council for that.
So CMI, I think the reason the amendment was made stemmed from some very valid concerns, as Kelly said, and Kelly's right, and the subcommittee's right. You keep putting all the words in Kelly's mouth, but they're really the subcommittee's word. That CMR two is not as far along in design as CMR one. Absolutely correct. The focus has always been on CMR one, and it's an adaptive reuse, so you're not changing anything, so it was easy. And so the concerns the subcommittee expressed are correct. We feel we responded to that by amending the proposal by saying that CRM two will need a special permit under the zoning bylaw for design review. And we feel very strongly that that's the method. We have no desire to design CMR two with the advisory subcommittee, with the advisory committee, the select board, or on the floor of town meeting. We think the proper place to do the design of CMR two, and it needs oversight. Nobody's arguing that fact. But we think the proper place for that part of the project to be done is in the planning board, like every other design review project in Brookline has done. And so we feel very strongly about that. As we said, we had 10 hours of subcommittee meetings. To be frank, I'm not sure that my clients have the appetite for going through the zoning process again. And I'm afraid that if in fact it's separated out, we'll lose those 4 units and it'll become a single family home, which is a matter of right. We can build a single family home on that parcel, it's a matter of right. 10,000 square foot parcel could be a 3,000 square foot single family home. So I think the wise choice is to keep them together, institute a special permit on CMR two, and have it go to the planning board for design review, and ultimately to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit. That I think meets the legitimate concerns of the neighbors, legitimate concerns of the subcommittee, but at the same time gives us 4 more units, one of which is subject to the bylaw. And Kelly was correct. At one point, we were thinking doing 3 units there, but we decided to do 4 because that would put us under the inclusionary zoning. If we did 3, we wouldn't be under the inclusionary zoning. So you're going to have another affordable unit there and 3 small townhouses. So that's what we proposed that it would go. So the 2 major differences between us and the subcommittee is 4 parking spaces and CMR 2 being part of this proposal and then going under the zoning bylaw for design review. Thank you.
Dennis, I'm happy to explain our reasoning behind the parking, if that's needed.
Well, I have a question from Anthony and then we'll go to you.
First I'll ask, what do you mean, but you said there's 35 units in total, 5 are going to be subject to the bylaw, making them affordable, then 30, you described as moderate, but they're going to be market rate, right?
They're going to be market rate for that size.
Yes,
which would be very moderate in the Brookline scheme.
I agree. I just want to make sure that it wasn't, but it's market rate, so that's okay. And then,
It might be a little below market, but you're on the right track.
okay. And then with putting toward you using the word workforce housing, will there be like a right of first refusal among Brookline employees in order to get access to those units? Because if not, it just seems to me like it might be difficult to attract that initially right away.
Well, would you go to market with 30 units,
Yes.
or excluding the affordable? When you fill a building with 30 units, it's not a matter of right of first refusal because they're all empty. And, anybody that wants it can get a unit there, will be able to get a unit.
Yeah. So yeah, I got you.
We expect very low one of our goals is low turnover.
Okay. So, okay. So, yeah, the way that I was just envisioning that was like, you know, you market it to the Brookline employees.
Well,
And then
we
after a certain
would, we
amount of
would prefer Brookline employees, and that's something we might do at market. That's a good idea.
time, I recommend that.
Because if they work here, less cars.
Yep.
And that's our goal, to have those types of employees live with us.
Perfect, thank you.
Dennis, I have something in the way of a minority report, and I would also like to offer possibly several motions that were addressed in the subcommittee. So at some point, if you would give me the floor for a few minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Liz? You had,
You know, Jeff, the question was actually asked.
Okay, Carlos?
Yes. So I'll just explain a little bit why we thought that 36 parking spaces, 35, no, we added one.
I mean,
There was 3 spaces on the corner.
Kelly can address the language. I think what the language says is 35 with no more than 9 outdoors.
Right.
So
That's
actually,
different than
So that equals 36.
27, and that's different than 27 and 9.
it says a maximum of nine outdoor spaces.
It doesn't say 35,
I'll go
I thought it said
I'll go back.
35
It
with
does.
not
Oh,
maximum
it
of
does
9.
say 35 with a maximum of 9 outdoors, correct?
So the reason why we said 9 outdoors rather than the 12
Or 13.
or 13 that were proposed is because right now there's a driveway which has a 2-lane, it was a 2-lane drop-off driveway. And then there were 3 parking spaces on the right side of the site. And by the way, if anybody wants to see the site, David is going to be doing a site visit tomorrow as the TMMA for the TMMA service. So we kept the 3 spaces that were used as parking on the right side of the lot. And then the developer fit another 6 spaces on one of the lanes of the driveway, leaving another one-way lane for entering into the garage and outside of the lot. And then they were proposing to turn the green space on the left side of the lot, as you look at the building, into parking space. And we thought that there was already a lot of asphalt on the site, and there was no need to increase the amount of asphalt, because this was also a mass transit housing project that is close to the T. So we thought that 1 per unit would be enough. We also thought that we asked about the neighborhood, and I guess one of the neighbors who was there mentioned that one of the biggest issues that the neighborhood had about parking was one neighbor, specifically across the street, couldn't get out easily out of the parking lot, out of their driveway. So we suggested that maybe they should take that to the transportation board and say no parking across the street from that driveway. But other than that, it has the same issues that any other single family home on Clark Street, which is on-street parking for a additional list. So here you can see on the drawing the 4 spaces that you see at the left side. Those are the grass, it's a grassy slope now. So that was our reasoning behind that.
Elisa?
Hi, excuse me if I am missing something. I'm trying to find where it shows the new zoning that has 25% landscaped space. Is that anywhere in our files?
Sure, it's in the warrant article. I can bring up the text if you'd like.
Sure. So was it somewhere in the agenda packet?
So it's part of the, basically it's part of the land use subcommittee report.
Yeah, I see some,
Yeah.
I see a change. The lot size 39,000, usable open space 10,000,
That's what it is.
but landscaped open space is 3,300, which isn't
I'm sorry.
25%.
Right, usable open space, and then the landscaped open space is smaller, and
Combined they equal.
So combined, yes.
Oh, but I mean, over and over again, it says that landscape, that the change that was made was to have landscaped open space be 25%. Is that not correct, or?
That may be incorrect. I thought it was usable open space in the report. It was defined that way.
Ah, well. Okay, so the change was usable was 1,500 originally, is that? No, landscaped was 1,000 and that's been moved to 3,300, is that?
So I'm sorry, I'm going back to the track. So hold on a sec. Yep, let's pull this up. Let's back to track changes. So originally as filed. It looks like, yes. So originally, usable open space was, it looks like 1,500 square foot total.
Right.
Landscaped open space was 1,000 square foot minimum. So
Right.
the change is now that usable open space is 10,000 square foot minimum and landscaped is 3,300. And there's also the added definition of usable open space. Maybe any combination of private roof decks and private or common space or ground level areas on decks or ground level areas.
And does that include parking, usable open space?
No.
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 Does that at all need to be specified, or that's clear?
It's defined in our zoning.
Zoning bylaw.
Okay, okay.
Parking or required parking?
I mean, vehicular pavements are not usable open space, ever.
But the private roof decks are.
Yes.
Right, okay, well, that's too bad. It does say here several times that it was changed to 25% landscaped open space, but
Sorry, that's.
Okay.
I think it's important to know
I
this
think
is
that might have been on the earlier drawing submitted by the developer.
Okay.
as we talk about CR one, it's adaptive reuse. Nothing's changing with the building on the outside. The same, no walls are being changed, no setbacks are being changed. So we're limited to what's on the ground today in how we plan for the future. We're not changing anything on the building exterior other than the roof.
mhm,
Michael?
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. And just a continuation to make sure I understand about the verandas off the larger units on the roof. That is considered private open space. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's unfortunate, I think, if we take a look at the utility of this property for Brookline in general, and that I guess that it's in the code, is it that private open space counts towards the open space that's required in terms of a development?
Yes. That's how it's
Maria
written down
here.
by,
And she can explain, it's been used before.
Maria?
where's Maria?
I'm here, Maria
Okay.
Morelli,
you
senior
ag-
planner. Yes. So there is a provision in the zoning outside of this that allows 50% of rooftop decks to be counted toward the usable open space. But the staff has long time said that can be a challenging provision if you are in a semi-urban area. So there should be credit for private open space that is provided. It makes sense to have roof decks, especially where there is going to be an indent all around those rooftop additions. There is a considerable amount of usable open space. So right now, if you look at the existing conditions, if you go on a site visit, you'll see there is virtually so much hardscape, and the drawings that you see with the green space, that a lot of that would be converted from impervious to actually landscaped and green space that would be usable open space.
Thank you. So what is the total percent then of private open space for the unit one of the total open space?
We would have to just measure those decks, but it doesn't take up a big percentage of the total usable open space. There's a lot more on the ground level. So it is not making up the majority of the usable open space.
Okay, thank you. It would just be useful to know what that percentage is. And if it's a
Sure.
small percentage, that would be useful to know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Brian,
Oh, I thought Lee was ahead of me, or do you want to?
Lee has a whole report he's gonna deliver, so
Okay, well,
I'll get to him.
Open
I'm
space.
anticipating a response to Lee, so.
Okay,
It's based on what he promised in subcommittee, so.
All right.
I'd like to go after him.
okay. Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to give people a little more background on the open space discussion. So we heard from the very beginning, we had a very strong letter from the Brookline Green Space Alliance asking the town and the project proponent to consider making that CMR2 parcel a park for the town. Acquiring that, or however we manage to do it, right? Because there is such little open space around that building. And then right behind that CMR2 parcel is the giant big school building. So it's very heavily characterized as large brick buildings with lots of activity happening around them. And their neighborhood is already using that space as a recreation space. So there's some utility to the idea of a small park there on that parcel. And we happen to know that the select board have been in executive session twice now to discuss this matter, and we don't know the outcome of that.
3 times.
3 times. Okay, 3 times. And so, we raised this issue right away in the beginning. The town is interested in it. It's not their list of demands is the top thing is that path. But so it's, if you look at the site plan, the schools had used it as their outdoor recreation space. And I'll just add this now since I have the floor. The other issue about what's going to happen on that parcel is currently it's an S10 zone, meaning it has a 0.3 FAR. And what the project proponent wanted in the beginning was site plan review only and the ability to put 4 units on that parcel. And we knew that that was not well thought out and it was not well developed as far as, what is the appropriate zoning for that site. And, the planning board, I pointed out to everyone the perils of the site plan review, which only refers back to zoning criteria that are in your actual zoning. So everything that we wanted to be reviewed by site plan review had to be in the zoning. And we weren't going to get there on this secondary parcel because it just hadn't been, thought about or considered in a larger context or the larger planning work that we're doing. We have no desire to leapfrog ahead of that decision-making process and decide to densify all of Route 9 or something. So, Lee has the point of view. I agreed with Lee. I think that but there is a strategy to going to town meeting, which I think is reflected in how the subcommittee finally voted. This is a 50% +1 vote at town meeting. And I don't think that simply having the planning board review whatever design it is, I don't think that actually addresses the question of what should that zoning be. And we have not determined that yet. So that is not, this is where we, the subcommittee, disagree with the project proponent. I will just say we all have to acknowledge how totally bizarre this process is that we're doing here. Okay. This is a project developer bringing zoning to town meeting. So now town meeting is functioning like our planning board and our ZBA. And God help us if this keeps happening, because we're gonna be in trouble. And it's not a good way to do things. And Jeffrey is complaining vehemently about how onerous the process was. But it was his choice to do it this way. I will also point out that the people who signed the warrant to get it placed on the warrant were not people that lived around here at all. They were people that live in the developer's neighborhood who just, we don't know why they signed it. So, you know, and we did hear from one neighborhood person who felt confident speaking, at least for some of the neighborhood, and they did have these meetings. And from their perspective, if something's going to happen to this building, they would much rather have it not be torn down and be residential, because it'll be quieter than a school. So that's where their support is coming from this. So I think that's all I need to say right now.
Mr. Chairman, can I just respond to the bizarre process? This is a process that is long. Maybe I'm too old, but if you drive to Fisher Hill and go to the Longyear project, that's how the same process, same exact process. There's many buildings in Brookline, same process, where the zoning was proposed by a developer. And the signatures,
but that
wait,
was
let
in
me
the
finish. I
context
didn't
of
interrupt you.
committees.
I didn't.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, it's our practice not
I
to
was
let the petitioner
recognized.
speak until the end of the discussion.
Yeah, I
No.
acknowledged him, but get to the point.
My point is that this is a process we've used many times. And petitions are signed, all of the petitions was signed by voters of Brookline according to the law. Including myself. It's a legal process. It's been implemented in Brookline for years, and it's not unique. And I can tell you, I wrote the zoning for Longyear. All right. I was the petitioner for Longyear, and there's like 80, 90 units there. So it isn't anything new.
Well, I have to have a rebuttal to that. I'm sorry. I just have to say this because the way we usually do it, even if it is a developer proposal, is we have a committee that works on it for a long time. And then, you know, with professionals, with neighborhood representatives, with, you know, a good cross-section of individuals working on that for a very long time before it comes to town meeting. So
That's why you
in
don't
my
get new houses.
experience,
Don't get
this
new houses.
is how it's been.
Paris.
So I really do want to thank the subcommittee. I think they do yeoman's work on this. I could not sit through these meetings if I wanted to, and I don't want to. So I tend to look at these zoning articles in a rather simplistic point of view, with two questions. My first question is, what happens if this gets voted down? What do we get instead?
It's a unique situation because the building is a Dover building, which is very unique in zoning. Normally in zoning, when you get zoning relief, it runs with the land. The only exception to that I know of is Dover. In Dover, once the Dover use is gone, then that building cannot go by Dover. So only the two things that would happen if this zoning got voted down, one of the two, it would either be sold to or leased to a Dover use. Because that's the only legal use of that building under the current zoning. So it would be another school, a medical facility, a religious facility, something like that, that would be protected by Dover. Because that's the only use this building could have under the current zoning. Okay?
Yep.
The other possibility is that the building would be demolished and something could be built that complies with the T6 zoning.
The T6, okay.
Am I correct?
I just had daycare. I mean,
Oh, daycare.
Daycare is a Dover use.
Yeah,
And-
they,
And the T6 would allow
Two families.
two families.
6,000 square feet.
You can turn the building into two family.
Okay,
no, you can't turn the building into two families.
But you could subdivide the lot into 6,000
We
square,
have two families.
two family on each.
okay, so my second question is, if we do approve this, what's in it for us as the town? And what I've heard so far is maintenance of the Philbrook to Clark Path. And there'll be a play area open to the public. And
For the first time in the history of this building, it's paying taxes.
it's paying taxes. Okay, thank you. And housing.
Yeah.
See, that, the housing, I hate to go off on this tangent. Housing costs us money if there are kids in there. And I am not one of the people in this room who thinks we need more housing, more people, more people. So I don't view that as a positive.
Alec, you're still. Well, Linda spoke to one of my questions, which is very helpful. I appreciate that. I did want to confirm with the petitioner, is there any concern from the petitioner's side about the time restriction placed on the new zoning for CRM1?
Absolutely not. This project will move as quickly as humanly possible. I would expect that the day after town meeting, my client will be looking for a building permit. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's how quickly he wants to move.
Great. Do we have any estimate based on the program parameters in the current motion as to what the new tax revenue we might realize could be?
I can only tell you, and I don't wanna, Lee's gonna argue, get mad at me, so I'm not gonna project. I will only tell you, because I've seen the tax bill, as a vacant building, the taxes went from 0 to 135,000 a year. It's a vacant building. Once it's generating revenue, that will make the building more valuable, as the assessors use the income approach to value it. So I think at a minimum, it would double, maybe even greater than that. But right now, it's a vacant building. I believe the tax bill was really close to 140.
Thank you.
Two finger, and I'm gonna go to Leah.
Yeah, two finger. So the values depends on the rental.
Right.
Right. And the number that was thrown out there was quite high. So that's why there was a question about where the rental numbers were going to be. And if you Google right now, 1,200 square foot rental in Brookline, you can get up to $3,000 in rental. So
Up to? Are you?
More than that.
up to around
Starting at
starting.
Clearly, okay, right.
No, I haven't. But
I live
that's-
at 850 square feet and I pay 34.50. And when I looked 2 years ago and I was looking at like larger units, like 1,200 square feet, like deeper in Brookline, what I would consider honestly like less interesting neighborhoods, they were around like 34 then, which means that now they're probably 37 because my rent 2 years ago was 32. So up to 3,000.
Yeah, that's, so our
No.
point was that the workforce housing label depends on the rental.
Of course.
So there's this big number there that can shift.
Right, but the valuation of the property would therefore be higher because we are undercounting the rental amount.
And that would suggest we'd have
If it is,
more revenue.
if it is
More
workforce
revenue for
housing.
this town.
Lee,
They're from Wayne. So we have to tell them that.
Okay, I need to cover a couple of things.
Oh,
If you indulge me, please. I did sit through 10 hours of this and I'm gonna try to make it as quick as possible. First of all, bear in mind, and Linda sort of made this point, but I want to emphasize it. This is a zoning article that applies to precisely one parcel of land. That is, it is under one ownership. It's about 1.25 acres of land. It resembles a concept known as spot zoning, where you basically look at a single parcel and do something to it to affect the zoning. Now, the lawyers tell me that it isn't spot zoning because we're using it we're calling it an overlay rather than changing the zoning. But from my non-lawyer perspective, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. And in every other material respect, except possibly the legal respect, this is spot zoning. And I think the notion of pursuing zoning policy that is focusing on a single parcel of land, not a particularly big parcel of land, unlike Long Ear or Hancock Village or things like that, sets a dangerous precedent. That's number one. Number two, as Kelly explained, 10,000 square feet out of this roughly just under 50,000 square foot parcel is located in an S10 zone. It's a single family zone, and it happens to have nothing on that that piece of the land at this point. So what the developer in effect is asking us to do is allow this one particular S10 parcel to be rezoned to allow for multifamily housing. And that too, to me, is a dangerous precedent, because while it is being portrayed as somehow relating to the economic necessity of the entire project, by the way, there's been no evidence offered to support that claim. The notion that we should allow rezoning of an S10 it's not adaptive reuse, it's simply arguing that it just produces more housing, seems to me to be inconsistent with our overall approach adopted overwhelmingly by town meeting to look at zoning comprehensively and not pick apart individual pieces. All right, that's number one. Number two, workforce housing is actually, it's been referenced here by the petitioner. Workforce housing turns out to have a legal meaning in Massachusetts. It has been adopted. It's codified in legislation, and it has been adopted as a formal policy by a number of municipalities, and most notably Nantucket and the towns on Martha's Vineyard, where workforce housing is a real issue, since you can't have a town employee or other relatively low wage type of employment living off island and commuting every day. But there are other towns that have adopted it as well. And best I could tell from admittedly minimal research, the notion is that this is something not quite as in the same category as affordable housing, which falls under the SHI, but it is still intended as a legal matter to apply to households with MHI, medium household income, in the range of 80 to 100% of area median income. To refer to it loosely, as the petitioner is doing, and assure us that this is somehow workforce housing because the units are going to be small is something of a misnomer. He has not, for example, offered to include as a restriction, as a deed restriction in this proposal, that it will actually fall under the definition of workforce housing as it exists in Massachusetts legislation. In addition, he hasn't even proposed to confine it to, for another deed restriction that would limit it to rental housing. I did some back of an envelope calculations over the past couple of days, and given the potential rentals that would be available, I can't see how this thing could work economically as a rental. And the only way I see it working economically for the developer is as condos. And roughly speaking, 35 units ranging in size from about 700 to 1,200 square feet, order of magnitude on average, figure $1 million thereabouts per unit if sold as a condo. So he could monetize this project to around $35 million. And we don't see any deed restriction being offered that would limit it to rental housing. So I think you have to take the representations as just that, as representations that don't have any force in effect. I do not believe that it is appropriate for us to rezone the S10 portion of this lot. I think the S10 portion of this lot, it's just simply not justified. It's not a Dover use. It's just at the moment an undeveloped lot. He hasn't really proposed any direct linkage between the two projects. And I had moved at the subcommittee to exclude that CRM2 portion, that 10,000 square foot portion entirely from the overlay. The vote was 5-2 against me, but I'm going to reintroduce it tonight because I think it's something you need to consider. There's also the issue of a public benefit to the town, and let me talk about that for a few minutes. The developer here certainly was well aware of the Dover condition that to which this property was subject. And the price that was paid by the developer for this parcel, including this the existing building and an acre and a quarter of land in Brookline Village, was all of $7 million. Think about that.
No,
$7 million.
7.5.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't let the facts get me.
Well, I had only seen 7, but fine, if it's 7.5, it's 7.5. The reality is the point is 7.5, 7 million, whatever it is, that is a heavily discounted price that reflects the risks that the developer assumed with respect to the Dover condition of this property. If that condition weren't present, then the value of the property would be considerably higher. And if you vote this warrant article, if town meeting adopts this warrant article and grants what's being requested, that creates an immediate windfall gain in value of this property of at least several $1 million, if not more than that. In my view, and Harry raised the issue of how does the town benefit? I think the way the town benefits potentially, and I would be prepared to go along with the CRM1 proposal, is for the 10,000 square foot portion to be simply ceded to the town for its use as a park. That would preserve the open space, and there isn't very much open space on the CRM1 portion. It would preserve the open space, it would preserve the neighborhood use, and it would give the town something in return for effectively lifting the current restriction that has depressed the value of this property, to which that enabled the developer to purchase it for such a bargain price. So I'm going to, at the appropriate time, I'm going to move that number one, that CRM2 be excluded from the overlay, and number two, that the developer, as a condition for approval, be required to agree to cede CRM2, that parcel, to the town of Brookline for use as a park.
Well, that's what's called extortion. It's illegal.
Just, we'll get to you. It's not a question for you.
I just can't believe
It's
you would
not a question.
entertain that.
We'll
It's
get-
illegal.
haven't been recognized.
Yeah,
First of all, it's not illegal. It's a condition. It's a public benefit. You could either take it or leave it. The town has required public benefits on any number of zoning articles. This is another one. You either take it or leave it. It's not extortion.
Elise.
May we have a bathroom break?
Maybe
Because I don't want to miss anything. It's riveting.
Yes, so-
So good.
Normally people sneak out.
Yeah. That's the protocol.
That's the protocol.
Okay.
Yeah, you skipped the vote.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it when you're gone.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We'll make it the chair of the
Ryan,
committee while you're
I
gone.
forgot. It's Ryan. I think he's made his point. He should make motions in a
Okay,
moment.
yeah,
We're gonna debate some of this.
I didn't mean to say to go after Lee because I was eager to pick a fight with him. Not at all. It's because I was anticipating as he did that he was going to sort of fill out the picture, and I sort of want to outline the choices here, I think, which in a way that I hope will be helpful. First of all, the whole idea, I'm not going to comment on the word bizarre zoning process, but I do think our zoning in this town is pretty bizarre when you consider the number of non-conforming properties. And in particular, when you have this Dover building that is in a 2-family zone, you have to have some kind of special arrangement, I think, to make good use of it. And so there's a reason for this particular thing, but that's just by the by. That I'm seeing three basic versions of what to do with CRM2. In terms of CRM1, there was indeed extensive, careful revisions with Mr. Allen in the room, making many concessions. There were many things that were agreed to here. With his assumption that CRM2 was always coming along with it as part of the package. So but he may comment on that later. But in terms of CRM1, there are three versions here. Number one, and I don't think we're gonna have three motions because the language that was approved, this is my first one here, approved unanimously by the planning board and by the housing advisory board, included these provisions for CRM2, which have been revised and revised. I mean, CRM1's been revised a lot, but CRM2 also, all the original numbers, I think, have been changed in the process. That did indeed restrict it somewhat more, not as much. As Linda pointed out, at some point, we insisted on imposing design review and a special permit because we recognized this was not as far along, which Mr. Allen agreed to, which would take things back to the planning board. So there was an approximate design that was presented. The majority of the subcommittee didn't want to leave that to the planning board, as the point that Linda made. But I don't think we have those provisions here in front of us, right? Because they were taken out by the subcommittee. So that's out there and it may come back in town meeting. Secondly, is the subcommittee proposal to keep the CRM2 zone, but take out all those provisions. And I think we all understand, I hope we all understand that as a kind of placeholder, saying we can do something with that later, but that all has to be debated and decided and worked through. And then third, we have Lee Sullivan's proposal, which is to take away that zoning entirely. And I understand that to have the implication of killing any version of this project, making it possible only to build a large single-family house on that lot, or alternatively, as he just presented, keep it as open space with no cost to the town. Meanwhile, in the background, as Linda mentioned, there's the possibility of the town actually buying it. So I just want to present, just want everybody to realize that's the sort of basic range of choices here. I do want to say about the idea of the desirability of keeping it as an S10 parcel and the dangerous precedent there. This is not a typical S10 parcel. Right across the street from it, you have a large school building. Right behind it, you have a former school building that is likely to become apartments. It is one lot away from Route 9. So I don't think this is a typical single family parcel where we're disrupting a single family neighborhood here. That's not to make a judgment about what the appropriate course of action is, but I do think a little bit of a context is appropriate there. I'll stop there.
Were you on?
I guess I have one question. I've got several comments because people have made statements that I think I don't quite agree with. For example, I'm going to start with you. I don't understand how you can consider this workforce housing, given the fact you need market rents to even make something work economically, and the rents that are likely needed for a 750 to 1,300 square foot apartment. I'm not sure what workforce it is that you're suggesting they're going to be for, but I don't think they're going to be for a new teacher in Brookline or a new policeman in Brookline. They certainly don't seem like they're going to be, I don't know, you can say, what's the mix between studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? What's the mix going to be?
I don't know exactly. There's no studio.
Approximate.
Right, approximately, I'd say 75% 1 bedrooms, 25% 2 bedrooms.
Okay, so
that's an estimate before someone, but that's my estimate.
Studios? No studios.
No studios that I know of.
Yeah, and so what's the range of rents that you're projecting?
We're projecting below market rents. But
So what's market? Then what's market? What do you think market is for these folks?
I'm just a lawyer, dude.
Well, come on, you're saying they're below market, you must have.
That's what the client has told me, and that's what he
And
is
so you haven't asked
rejecting.
what that means. Okay, so that right there is a problem for me. But the problem for, hold on, the problem for me is
You asked
that
me a question?
you're making a claim
Yeah.
without facts to back it up.
Well, we're
So
not
that's a
gonna,
problem.
no, because what facts can I give you?
You
want
could
me to-
tell, you could tell us what
I'm not
what the
giving you.
proposed rents are going to be, what the range, what you think market is. To have gone through this process and be making those statements without giving that information, without having that information is, I find that hard to.
We tried many
Okay,
times on that.
I'm just saying. So that's my comment. Comment to my colleagues, comments to my colleagues are that the town, this town meeting, this committee has used overlays for virtually every significant development that has been undertaken in town since I've been on this committee. So I don't think it is unusual to do that, even though it's a small situation. If you think that someone got a good price because they're taking on risk, then the fact that they're going to potentially get a benefit from a zoning change is sort of the reward side of that risk reward. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with not being given appropriate information for people to understand and accept your argument about what this property, who this property is going to be geared towards. The fact that we're not getting any of that information suggests to me that your definition of workforce is nothing more than a word, because you're not able to give the information. I have a problem with that.
It's a concept. It's a concept, and to put numbers out there that
Define your concept for me.
that what it is it would be geared toward people like teachers, municipal workers, people that the workforce. And that's
Yeah,
and that's who we're gonna gear the rents to.
Those numbers don't make sense. Even
They do, because here's the difference.
Prove
It's
it.
rent, it's rent.
Prove it.
Let me finish.
Prove it.
Well, you want me to answer it?
I want you to prove it.
I'm not gonna be cross-examined. That's my job.
Really?
In the courtroom, not here.
Exactly.
Sorry?
I said exactly, Jeffrey.
Yeah, so the point being, now I lost my train of thought is that we have a concept. And that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we designed the building like we did. We don't have big units. And that is so that we can keep the rents as low as we can. But the difference between what lease projected as condos and rented is just this. You don't make your money right away. It's a long-term investment. These are going to be rentals. They will always be rentals, according to my client. He lives in Brookline. He said someday my son will be managing this property. His son's 6 years old. So these are going to be rentals. Okay, so that, yeah, you don't project over a 2 or 3 year. It's not the condo, but it's a long-term investment.
So look, having come from a real estate finance background, I'm just trying to make sense of what it is you're claiming. And not giving the committee enough information to actually verify or understand, not verify, understand what it is you're actually saying. Because quite frankly, I don't think you're saying much of anything other than workforce.
Well, no, I think what Pat was saying it in terms of the sums. You may disagree with
Hold
that.
on, 750 square feet to 1,200 square feet. That's, that's a pretty good size apartment.
No,
around here.
no,
I'm sorry.
750 square foot, one bedroom.
Are there studios in this?
You asked me 10 minutes ago. I said no.
No studio, no, not in development in town.
Oh, in town?
Yeah.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are.
How big are studios?
500.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah,
No, there are a bunch of 300 square foot studios in
I
town
think
too,
that's
yeah.
right, there are.
On the base of,
There,
at the base of University Road, there's a development that's got this
Yeah.
tiny places.
Yeah, but it's not prevalent in this town. It's not, these will be the only new small housing in this town in the last
Yes.
long time.
Was it 6 or 7 years ago, there was a proposal for micro units?
Nobody.
Right. And 6 or 7 years ago, those micro units were projected to rent for, what was it, $2,200 for like.
Oh, yeah, the profit.
And what happened to
for
it?
it was huge.
Yeah.
And what happened to them?
Yeah.
What happened to them?
They didn't get
That's
approved.
town meeting.
Right?
Didn't get approved at town meeting.
Right.
No,
Right.
actually, it did.
That's
get
it.
It did, it didn't get built. Didn't get built.
I would like to vote for this. I really would. I'm having a hard time because
Is the
Great.
development of small new housing dependent on the rent? Is that what you're saying?
what I'm saying, well, do I think the development is? Yeah, I think that a project needs to make sense economically for you to be able to finance it.
Yes.
Okay, so
But is that the,
And the two of you go out into the room to the rest of us.
Oh,
to
my
continue
last
the debate,
question,
please.
my last question, have you looked at donating a land or tax break to satisfy the town to get some economic spirit funds?
it's unrealistic to think that we would donate that property.
Oh, so you haven't looked at it or you've thought about it, but you rejected it?
We looked at it and it's unrealistic to think we would donate that property.
You don't get enough of the tax structure.
You're on the list.
Thank you.
Carlos.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about the S10 because I think that came up a lot. And the problem with the S10 is that it always came after the discussion of CRM1. So we were always tired and we were like, whatever. But S10, I mean, right now it has been described as not a typical S10. But if you go to the site, all the houses on that street, so on that side of the street, are single family homes. So this would just be one more single family home on this street. That it has a school on one side? Yes, it does. Does it have a large building on the other side? Yes, it does. But there are 3 other houses right now that at least one of them has the same condition. It's actually closer to Route 9 and it's a large single family. And then the neighbors also have a large building. So there are situations like that. There are situations, for example, at Fisher Hill, where there was a Dover project surrounded by single family homes. That Dover project was turned into housing, senior housing, expensive senior housing. But still, I mean, so it has happened before. But the part I don't understand, or I still come back to it and I don't understand the math out of it, is so they need to develop that land to or do something with that land to make the rest of the project financially feasible, which I understand. But right now, they're also looking to do townhouses, so do 4 units of 2,500 square feet, which is a large house. In that, so the single family had been upgraded to a 4-unit project. So, and I know that Joe can't tell us anything about the negotiation, but the part I don't understand is if the town were to purchase that land, they're not purchasing a single family lot. They're purchasing a lot that you could put 4 units in it.
Let me,
So there's more value there.
no,
If this passes, there's more value there than if it was just a single family. And that's why I think there is some reticence from not doing this all together, because the moment a developer can do 4 units on that lot, you can get more money out of it.
can I answer that?
No,
Because
no,
question
no,
directed to
no.
that.
Yeah.
I thought what's being offered by the subcommittee is maintaining an overlay of CRM one and CMR two, that there are two overlay spots there. One of which will be upzoned in order to take care of this large building, which seems to make sense to me because it's an odd sort of property, but that the CRM two would not be upzoned.
Yes, that's the.
So it does not get that inherent value
Right,
either to build or to simply
but
flip.
the petitioner hasn't agreed with that version.
It's not about, no offense to the petitioner. It's up to town meeting.
Right, so there's, but right now it was described as the S10 was described as something that should be upzoned. So there's that question.
Yeah.
But then there's other question is, how does the town negotiate for something that could be worth a lot more money
If the
if town meeting, right, goes for it
No.
or not? And how does that happen with town meeting? So
You'll get a chance.
Okay,
Okay, so. I need to, there's a lot of moving parts here, so I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I feel like if I'm not clear, then there's other people in the room that aren't clear, so I want to make sure we're all clear. The advisory committee's proposal is to have CRM one upzoned as is, and then CRM two postpone and do it in May, right?
Right.
Now, the petitioners, what the petitioner's concern is that they want both done at the exact same time with the same zoning, right? With the same,
Not with the same zone.
sorry,
They're-
okay.
Sorry, they're
At
two
the same
different
time.
zones.
At the same
but
time.
upzoning at the same time.
Got
Yeah.
it. Now, petitioner, does your client, is your client reliant on the potential revenue from CRM two to fund CRM one in the short term?
not in the short term.
Not in the short, but in the long term, are you saying that both are necessary to make the project financially viable?
not in the short term?
I'm sorry,
Well, there's
I just
usually
said
a
it-
construction yard in the short term.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
it's-
not in the short term, I said.
Yeah,
Okay.
not in the short.
Okay,
I don't know.
the reason I'm asking
I'm
is.
just
because you
saying
s-
on on the financing for
What
the,
he says anyway.
what did you say?
Oh.
What'd you say?
Since you're not offering
What'd you-
actual.
I wanna know, did you
facts.
call me a liar?
Dennis, no.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I
Totally inappropriate,
try.
okay?
I would tap the gavel.
Yeah, well, if someone calls me a liar, I think I have a
No, I'm
right.
just saying in
No, you
terms of
just
the
said you can't
protection
believe
for the
anything he
town.
says.
For us being able to reassure town meeting what is going to happen, we would need proof. That's all I'm saying. And we don't have that. Facts.
Go on,
To
Anthony.
Cliff's point.
Go on, Anthony.
So your client is
Yes.
relying on the revenue of both on CRM two to make CRM one viable. And the reason I asked this question is because you said that you're expecting rents to be lower than market rate for CRM one. Now, I haven't done the math myself, but other of my colleagues have said that that wouldn't make financial sense, right?
I disagree. I think over the long term it does.
But does it only work in the long term if CRM two is also upzoned?
It only, I wouldn't say use the word upzoned. I would say, because the
I could be
escape,
even more specific.
the escape route on CMR two is a single family home. So I don't want to make a blatant statement that the revenue from this project is dependent on CMR two being upzoned.
Okay.
I won't make that statement.
Okay, would you, this is something that I'm curious about, and I don't know if anyone would agree with me, but this is, I am in favor of building more housing in smaller sizes in Brooklyn. That's something I'm in favor of. I'm young, it's hard for me to rent here, I want to live here, that would be great. I see these types of projects as an opportunity for me to be able to get that opportunity. Now, I know some of my colleagues disagree, that's okay. But is it possible to be able to try to form some type of agreement where if you really do believe in a workforce housing and it's not just a concept where we can say first, I even like my phrase first time right, but say offer to the employees for 5 months, let them have their shot at it, give them that time, and then in exchange, we do the zoning change for CRM two at this point now.
I will take that back to my client. I don't think that's a crazy idea.
That is something that I think.
5 months may be a little long, but I think the concept, I will certainly, I
If
don't
that
see
can be
a problem with
negotiated, I
that.
think that's something worthwhile. If we believe it as a workforce housing, I think that's a good. idea.
But would that not be beyond scope of the zoning?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know.
So then we need some kind of.
We can do an MOU. and-
That's how I said with the grant.
I agree. I understand. I know, but that's a whole other conversation.
Just, sorry, quick to.
Yeah.
Zero two, just that, again, the subcommittee's proposal is only to delay this for a few months. So in terms of financial viability, I just think it's important to know what he said about the short term. Because it is our intention that they come back so we can tighten the zoning map and again, set some of these. Hopefully set it to be appropriate for the neighborhood. That's good.
Two finger to that, two finger, I just, sorry.
I've had a two finger for a while since Cliff spoke.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me just clarify. The problem of the delay from the developer's point of view, I think, is that it is possible that we come back in the spring and adopt Lee's proposal. And they have to realize that's a possibility. In other words, not allow them to do anything. So we just really, that's up in the air.
Fran.
So just with all due respect to Mr. Allen, the other Mr. Allen has this is not, your project is not the only workforce project being built. The other Mr. Allen has a 40-unit building on my precinct with 35 units of 500 to 700 square feet. And so there are other
Yeah.
workforce.
Is that under construction?
No,
Okay, see, that's,
the permit has been applied. They only applied for a permit, last month, in
Right.
September.
yeah, so.
Carol.
Thank you. So I have some follow-up to what Cliff was saying. Well, first I have a question for the planning department. Has workforce housing been defined within the town of Brookline as to what that would mean meaning what incomes?
Yeah, so the state doesn't define it in the statute. It is defined for certain programs. And it generally means 60% to 120% of median income. That's generally the parameters used for housing programs.
Okay, so then you can extrapolate what income, what rents would be necessary.
Yes,
for this to be-
yes, that the HUD actually puts out every year income limits for household size.
But you can also then extrapolate from those income limits what the rent would need to be.
Yes, HUD
So-
actually puts those those rent limits as well.
Okay, so getting to what Cliff was saying, you can't get this far along in creating a proposed development without having some pro formas on what the rents are going to be. And I think that unless, since the term workforce housing is being used as a enticement to town meeting in this body to agree to these zoning changes, I think it just needs to be a requirement that those proposed rents are part of the submission before this can be considered. So that's my follow-up, my two fingers to Cliff. Secondly, I'm really uncomfortable of a developer bringing a warrant to town meeting asking for changes in zoning. You know, for my time on EDAB, you know, these were a representative body of the town, whether it was EDAB, the planning department, whatever it is negotiating these things. And with EDAB, we were getting tax certainty agreements before we agreed to any kind of change in zoning. And it seems to me if someone needs a change in zoning to create workforce housing, we should be negotiating some sort of restriction to last for N number of years or applying to N number of units within the building, that in return for getting this zoning relief or this change in zoning, you're going to restrict these units for these incomes, X number of units. And I think that this body, the AC and town meeting, is not the place to be negotiating those agreements, but I think it's a reasonable agreement to be seeking in a property like this. And I have no problem with the developers making a big return in return for the risk that they've assumed by needing the zoning change. but I just think the process that we're going about it is going to lead to a suboptimal outcome for the town. And I'm not sure we should be valuing the, looking for that second parcel, CRM2, as open space for the town, as having more value to the town than getting some sort of restriction that ensures that we have workforce housing for X amount of time. So I just have a problem with how this whole thing is happening. And I think at the very least, we should postpone and get those rents from the developer before we vote on this.
Dave,
Yeah, so having been through the 10 hours at subcommittee and our short hours that we've spent here. I want to speak, I want to speak in favor of the subcommittee's motion. I think that Jeffrey Allen actually, in his remarks at the beginning, explained his use of the word workforce housing, which was small units. And maybe he's trying to get an edge there, but I think what we need to evaluate this as a market rate project with Brookline's 15% inclusionary zoning. And we know that the HAB looked very carefully at its ability to raise the percentage beyond 15% and decided definitively with advice of real estate consultants that they could not. That 15% inclusionary is about all that Brookline can ask for in a market rate housing development, if we want any new development. And there are certainly people in town who don't. But for those who want to see housing built, 15% is a reasonable but not an inconsequential ask. And I think this could have been brought forward as half as many units that were twice as big. And I think that the fact that it is modest size units is a good thing. I think that the impact of the expansion of the pop-ups on the roof is minimal. It helps the project have, it increases the number of units significantly because those units are now duplexes, so they take up less room on the third floor. The elevator and the stairs aren't being extended up. There's just a little penthouse with the bedroom and the balcony, the outdoor space. So it makes some nice units and it makes more units in the building. And it doesn't really cast shadows off the property because you're pretty far from the property line everywhere. And the pop-up is stepped back. We have the objective of embodied carbon and not tearing the building down. And as far as to Carol's point just now about tax certainty, the tax certainty is having it not go to be a school. I mean, that's what we're getting here is we're getting rents as soon as they finish the building. So I think that getting this building back into service as an adaptive reuse of a great big white elephant that's sitting down on Route 9 is a good thing. It's a housing choice vote. When Kelly circulated her proposal last week to hold off on the entitlements for more than tripling the density on the small part of the parcel until a future town meeting, I immediately sent it to the moderator to find out what the status of that second vote would be in a future town meeting. And the moderator replied back that he could see at a minimum 2 different pathways in the housing choice legislation, state legislation that would allow that vote to be a housing choice vote. So as some reassurance to the developer, while they would have to go through the process again of adjusting the overlay, editing or amending the overlay for CRM2 at a future town meeting, the moderator said, if it looked like what's on the table now and it became multifamily, because it wouldn't have multifamily entitlement under the subcommittee's proposal, to then entitle that subparcel for multifamily would be another housing choice vote. The developer is going to use that as their construction staging yard for a while. He thinks 6 months and they'll be filling up the apartments, but
No.
a couple of
6 to
years.
10 months.
I'm
6 to
kidding.
10.
It's gonna be a couple of years before they're ready to do anything there. So they have plenty of time to do the development. And to the criticism that Jeffrey made, that the subcommittee and the advisory committee and town meeting aren't the appropriate place to design this project. And the planning board should be the one to do that. We simply haven't seen anything about how the land would be laid out. We know nothing about landscaped open space, tree canopy, vehicular circulation. And I think that it is appropriate for these bodies of advisory and town meeting to understand under these circumstances that the open space that the town's benefits will be in balance with that increase in density on the parcel. And so I think it's in a good place. And I think that I enthusiastically, support what's brought forward by somebody.
Christine, did you have your hand raised?
I did. Just a quick comment on the issue of the rents. Nobody can predict what the rents are going to look like in 6 months. They can't even project them at this point. I went to my financial planner. My financial planner tells me, well, stock market's likely to crash sometime in the next, I don't know, year or so. Everybody expects it. Nobody knows when. If we could figure that out, we'd all make more money. I was just tell my students, if I could predict the future, I wouldn't be in a classroom. I would be on a beach with a drink that had an umbrella in it. Smaller units do rent for less. If they're really doing that, then it'll be reflected in the finishes they put in and the amount of money they spend on it. None of that can be predicted at this point. I think that the subcommittee did a great job modifying this. I think the use of the phrase workforce housing is unfortunate. And if we had avoided that, we would not be having most of this discussion. We would just be discussing whether or not 35 units with 5 rent, low income units was a good development for that particular site, which it is. And, I would suggest you probably eliminate that phrase workforce housing from your vocabulary, just as I put in for town meeting.
Talking about rents and not being able to predict, but also talking about being under market rate, maybe there's a percentage that, or a range of 5 to 10% under market rate estimated. Is that something that's possible?
It's not something we can do with this particular article, probably.
Can I just clarify? Developers make assumptions about the future. That's different than making a prediction about the future. Assumptions about the future are necessary in order to pencil out any potential project. And then, if those assumptions don't come true, then things change. And sometimes developers lose the project, they go into foreclosure, or they have to refinance. But there is an assumption being made, and that's what we're asking about. We aren't asking about a guarantee. We're asking about what the assumptions are that are being used to design this project.
So we have,
I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna support the motion of the subcommittee. I think this is a sort of strange and unique situation with this property right now. And I think it's a good use of it. It gets us more housing, it gets smaller units. Christine's point, I think we've gotten too balled up on this term workforce housing. I understand it's nice for marketing, maybe until it blows up in your face in front of the advisory committee. But other than that, I think the reality is it is going to be market rate housing, but for somewhat smaller units. And I think there's utility in that. I understand Lee's desire to pull out the CRM2. I think it should still be in there, but not upzoned yet, so that we have a better sense. But I can certainly see keeping it in there. I think there's a lot of good to it. And to Carol's point, yes, there are assumptions that are made. They clearly have a pro forma somewhere. If they wanted to share it with us, they would have shared it with us. And they don't want to, and I don't think there's gonna be. We're not gonna be able realistically go down the road of negotiating certain rent levels with them in exchange for something else. I think we just have to understand what it is, and that is more units, market rate, but smaller units, hopefully keeping it down some. With perhaps some more units available in the spring, depending on what it looks like.
So we're about to go to votes. Am I gonna regret?
No, I'm
Okay.
just gonna make a comment. So one thing that Jeffrey said that I observed, because I did listen to some of it, not the 10 hours that the subcommittee, kudos to the subcommittee for staying with this, is that this is a project that really has support of the neighborhood. I was really surprised to hear the neighborhood speak, and there used to be a time when town meeting cared about something like that, you know, being mindful of how a neighborhood feels about a project. And I just wanted to say, I thought that was really, coming from my neighborhood, a really nice thing to see and listen to. I think, as David said, he really clarified everything for me. This is an adaptive reuse of a project. That's a good thing to do in Brookline. And with neighborhood support, and also I think the subcommittee's cautionary approach to looking at the second smaller parcel, giving it a little bit more time to sort of to gel, is a great idea, and I'm gonna support this.
So before we go to motions,
Very briefly, I agree 100% with you. But the word workforce housing is what the select board had said they're looking for, and we adopted it. Many times tonight, I wish I had never heard the phrase, so you're absolutely right. So I just want to make clear where we're at. And I want to be very clear. I pride myself on being upfront and honest, okay? That's why I sat on this committee for 6 years and upstairs for 9 years, okay? I've been accused of being too much of a straight shooter. The passage of this amendment that Kelly put forth does not have a terminal effect on this project. I'm not saying that you vote this way, the project goes away. That's not true at all. Okay? What could happen is CRM1 goes forward and the developer says, the heck with going through the zoning again for CRM2. I'm just gonna build a single family house there. I don't know if the developer's gonna do that. I don't think he knows. He knows yet. That's the only downside on the route you've chosen. Oh, you're advocating. So, but I think CMI1 will go forward and there's no threat to it. I just want to respond to Carlos's point. We understand what you said about upping the value of that lot. And that's why we've had discussions with the town. We've had frank discussions with the town. I don't have to be quiet like Joe does, okay? But we've had discussions. We're nowhere near at a resolution, but we've made clear to the town that we're valuing it as a single family house lot. We gave them figures of how we came to our view. And we made it clear to them that it's not our inclination to be in negotiations with the town about that lot after town meeting. Because we don't want to have the zoning of CMR2 being considered at the same time as sale is being considered. We think that there's just something not good about that. So we are talking to the town, but I'm not optimistic, I'm not pessimistic, but I'll leave it at that. So your point is well taken.
yes,
I apologize. A straight shooter wouldn't come here and call this workforce housing if they knew it was. And so what I want to say is that, as I said before, I'd like to support this. But someone has to stand up at town meeting when the subcommittee is making this presentation and make it very clear to town meeting that this is not workforce housing, because we should not be letting folks come to town meeting and using marketing terms in order to emotionally get people on that floor to vote for something. And that's the problem here. And someone should say that to the select board. It's misleading. It's great to have housing. I support housing. I want to support this. Promise me that someone will get up and make that statement. If the subcommittee's not able to do that or willing to do that, that's a problem too.
I think I'm gonna use the term reasonably priced rental
That
housing.
term is not in my report anywhere.
But it's gonna be in,
It will be.
it's gonna be
It
in,
will show
it's
up.
gonna be in comments that either the petitioner makes or the select board makes. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get in trouble with reasonably priced too, because that are derived from market.
Linda.
Yeah, thank you. Just to cover the bases on the question of rents. I would like to ask Maria to tell us what the 5 units are gonna be rented at. What percentage of the area median income are the quote unquote affordable units actually gonna be rented at?
Why are you asking me that question?
Well, because I think in my personal opinion, calling it affordable housing is a misnomer, because I don't think it is actually affordable when it's gonna be, you're gonna tell me it's something like 80 to 100% of the area median income, which at this point must be about $100,000.
So Linda, the section 4.08, which is the town's inclusionary zoning, sets forth the median incomes that the household, like 50% AMI for rental. There also are provisions in the zoning that you all have adopted for different things that you might want to do. If you want to offer those rental units at 80% AMI, then there's a contribution that you have to make to the housing trust. They're all sorts of provisions under section 4.08 that are allowed, that are consistent with state law.
But for clarification, I think there's some confusion. When we speak of 80% of AMI, that's not the rent. That's the qualification for the affordable rent.
That's
The
right.
rent is-
It's the
rent
income
is what,
area.
30%?
I beg your pardon?
The rent is something like 30% of that number, isn't that right?
It's, it really depends on the area. We get them every year. I mean, I have some that I can look at going back to 2023, depending on bedroom size, that I can rattle off. But I do want to make a point here. Perhaps workforce housing was a misnomer because people are distracted by it. But we, as staff, as professional planners, there is a value in capping unit sizes. And we talk about that as a tool in exchange for some type of bonus, because there is a sweet spot that is missing. That's that missing middle, that size that different households at different life stages are looking for.
Yeah, we all agree with that.
Grant.
I just, hopefully we're getting towards the end. I just would like you to clarify the vote for me, because I'm newer at this. It's only my second year. Irrespective of whether we vote for or against the subcommittee's amendment, the petitioner will still be pushing, promoting or moving their original.
Well, that's not a question for me, it's a question for the petitioner. If the petitioner is allowed to do so.
Right.
It's up to them whether they do it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Motions and a number of votes. As I understand it, there's a motion from the subcommittee for the amended version of warrant article 7. Lee has at least 2.
Probably one, I think, just the motion to exclude.
Wayne, okay. All right, let's get the subcommittee motion on the table first. All right, so we have a motion on the table from the subcommittee for favorable action on warrant article 7 as amended by the subcommittee and included in the package. So Lee, can you describe your amendment?
My amendment would simply redefine the overlay to cover only CRM1. I don't see if we're not going to adopt any provision with respect to CRM2, the petitioner's client still owns that property. If we're going to revisit it later, we want to create another overlay on that, we should do it at that time. But for the time being, if we're not going to do anything with CRM2, the appropriate policy, it seems to me, is to simply exclude from the overlay so as to not create any ambiguity as to its status. So I would move that CRM2 be excluded from the overlay.
To redefine the overlay to exclude CRM2. Is there a second for that? All right.
Second.
So any additional discussion on that amendment?
Yeah, I would just suggest that if we were to proceed in that matter, then should someone come forward with a proposed overlay for a single S10 house lot, that would really be spot zoning.
Yeah.
No more so than this.
Okay. That's.
All right, let's vote. If this is to amend the subcommittee motion to exclude the smaller CRM2 from the overlay. If it passes, that will then become the main motion, and we will still have to vote on it. If it fails, we'll go back to the subcommittee motion.
Yes.
Yes.
I would also say that this amendment makes the difference between the two, the possible warrant article that the petitioner had and the advisory committee's warrant article much further apart, which will then risk the group in town, or the groups of people in town that want more housing, to think that the advisory committee does not want more housing in the future. And that's not the case. So I think it's easier, well, at least I'm in favor of not doing the amendment, because there is a path to do what the petitioner wants in the future if the right information comes up.
Okay. So we're going to vote on Lee's amendment to exclude CRM2 from the overlay. Michael,
Yes.
Harry B,
No.
Cliff,
No.
Anthony,
No.
Elise,
No.
Harry F,
Come back to me.
David Mark,
No.
Neil,
No.
Susan,
No.
Harry,
No.
Kelly,
No.
Elisa,
Staying.
Janice,
No.
Brian,
No.
Alec,
No.
Carol,
No.
Liz,
No.
Pam,
No.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
Donnell,
Yes.
Linda,
No.
Fran,
No.
David,
No.
Carlos,
No.
Margaret,
No.
Lee,
Yes.
Christine,
Surprise.
No.
Harry F.
No.
Okay, so by 4 in favor, 22 opposed, and 1 abstention, the amendment fails. So now we're going to go back to the subcommittee motion, which is,
Dennis, can I ask a very quick question?
yes.
Has any other group in town, select board, planning board, or anyone voted any version of this yet? Or are we the first?
Planning
Plan-
board.
And the Housing Advisory Board voted for the petitioner's version, but they voted for the petitioner's version, well, with the
Before.
special permit.
No. The special permit wasn't in it.
But
That
they voted
planning board's
for-
taking up the special permit provision above one.
No, the planning board already voted to support unanimously to support the special permit. So
But that's before we voted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they have not heard our, or they have not
No, they
voted.
have not, is that what you meant? Our
they,
version?
they haven't, they voted on their own. They haven't heard what your amendment was, but they've already voted on they've
Yeah, I
already
did.
voted.
I apologize.
But
I
the
didn't know
select
that.
board has not, no.
Select board has not.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. So the main motion is the subcommittee motion as printed. Michael,
Yes.
Harry B,
Yes.
Cliff,
Because Linda's promised me she's gonna stand up at town meeting. I will vote yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
Harry F,
Come back to me.
David Mark,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Carol,
Abstain.
Liz,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Donnell,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Lee,
No.
Christine,
Yes.
Please
There-
have consistent.
Oh, yes.
yes, okay, 25 to 1. That might be the most heated discussion we have ever had for an article that passed 25 to 1 to 1.
That is definitely true from my experience. That's for sure.
All right, well, thank you to the subcommittee for what was a lot of work, and I understand why it was a lot of work. Thank you to the petitioner.
Thank
I
you.
apologize
Thank
for
you.
joking at your expense. I know.
Thank you to the subcommittee. They really, well, however this ends up, a lot of credit goes to the subcommittee. They helped us frame this better.
Harry, do you want to make an announcement?
Yeah, I have two announcements. So we're meeting this Thursday night, Zoom only. And the schedule is warrant article 10, the renaming of the naming of a baseball diamond. Warrant article 8 on lighting. Warrant article 19 on the 25th Amendment, which is back to us. And warrant article 9 on the renter's handbook because of the Warren Amendment.
Yes.
Right, which is being voted on
Which
now.
the select board adopted this evening.
Which the select board
Oh, okay.
adopted. Okay, so we need to sort of consider that. My second announcement is, I currently have speakers for every warrant article at town meeting with 2 exceptions. One is the union, police union.
And Harry Bors is doing that.
Thank you. And the other one, if somebody wants to do it, is warrant article 3, the budget amendment, which is mostly the,
Margaret's gonna do that.
Margaret's gonna do that? Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone who sent in, combined reports. I think I got reports for everything in time. So that was awesome. Thank you. And I guess, you know. All right, thanks, everybody. Good night.